Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. This week my supporters on Patreon voted for Silverquill the Disputant as our commander in this black-white token control deck. Silverquill, a 4-mana 4/4 with flying and vigilance, saying each instant and sorcery spell we cast has casualty 1, meaning we can sacrifice a creature with at least 1 power when casting an instant or sorcery spell in order to make a copy. So our deck is going to be filled with lots of instants and sorceries, including lots of token makers, which can be used to first set up casualty in the first place, but then they're also very nice to copy once we have a few other tokens in play, so we can start going incredibly wide. And then we'll round out the deck with a bunch of card draw and some interaction that we can then also try to copy with our commander. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split the deck up into a bunch of different categories, starting with our non-instant and sorcery token makers. So we've got a bunch of cheap sacrifice fodder, often 1-mana creatures that leave behind a token when they die, and some enchantments as well that can generate a token each turn, so we can set up casualty and then hopefully immediately get value once we get our commander down. Then we've got our other token makers that are instant and sorceries, so these are also fine to play early to set up casualty, but once we have Silverquill in play we can also start copying these by sacrificing other tokens we've already generated. And then we move on to our interaction. This deck is not playing any board wipes, since we are trying to play a bunch of tokens ourselves. Instead, by copying all these spot removal spells that can often hit more than just creatures, we can hopefully control the opponent's board and take over from there. And then we also have plenty of card draw, some enchantments that may be synergized with tokens entering the battlefield, as well as plenty of sacrifice effects that can sacrifice our earlier creatures to draw cards, and then some powerful planeswalkers as well that synergize nicely in this archetype, including Professor Onyx, which triggers off Magecraft, which also includes any casualty copies we might generate. And then we've got a small mana section with a few powerful ramp artifacts and some ritual effects, which can also set up some explosive starts. Don't want too many ramp artifacts, since of course they don't necessarily synergize with casualty, but they are nice to have in play early on. And then last but not least, our miscellaneous section has a bunch of token doubling effects, which are also very powerful here, and a few tutor effects as well, with Dark Petition especially being nice if we can cast it with casualty, as we can now maybe find 2 cards in the deck and generate 6 mana if we have Spell Mastery enabled, so that can also set up some very fun turns. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our sacrifice fodder. At 1 mana, there's a bunch of these 1/1 creatures like Doom Traveler, Indebted Spirit, and Infestation Sage, leaving behind a flying token when they die. We've got Freebooter and Shambling Ghast making a treasure when they die, and Nested Shambler leaves behind a number of tapped squirrel tokens equal to its power. Then we've got our Skrelv's Hive and Bitter Blossom at 2 mana as enchantments that generate a 1/1 token at the cost of 1 life each turn, so these are a bit harder for the opponent to interact with. And then the Sedgemoor Witch, despite being a creature, is still incredibly synergistic here, as it triggers off Magecraft, so it will also make a 1/1 pest token of a casualty copy, and then sacrificing those pests is a way of gaining a bit of life back, since that's potentially one of the weaknesses of the archetype, is that there's not a ton of life gained throughout, and there's a lot of spells that want us to pay life instead. Then moving on to our token makers, we've got Sendin the Pest, making a new pest token. This one gains life when it attacks, and also makes the opponent discard a card. So this one is fine to play early, but especially nice if we can cast it with casualty, make multiple pests, and make the opponent discard multiple cards. And then at 3 mana, there's kind of a bigger version with No Way Out, making the opponent discard 2 cards, in addition to making a Decayed Zombie token, which we're happy to sacrifice to future casualty effects. Then we've got the Shadow Summoning, making a pair of tapped spirit tokens, and then the classic 3 mana Lingering Souls, making 2 spirits for 3 mana, and it also has flashback, so we can do it twice. Hop to It makes 3 rabbit tokens for 3 mana, Release the Dogs makes 4 dogs for 4 mana, and then Cornered by Black Mages is one of my favorite cards in the deck, as it not only makes the opponent sacrifice a creature, but also makes a wizard token that will further drain the opponent when casting non-creature spells, so this one's also great if we can copy it. Then we've got Battle Screech, which can be flashed back pretty easily. Can both flash it back by tapping 3 creatures and sacrifice one of those tapped creatures to set it up with casualty to make even more flying birds. Mughals Valor is a way to generate life-linking tokens, and then can also make our entire team indestructible, especially powerful if we already have a bit of a board presence, because then copying this with casualty will very quickly generate a huge board. Then we've got Season of the Burrow, which doubles up as interaction, but can also make a whole bunch of rabbit tokens. Emirios Call can be played as a land or a way to generate 2 4/4 Flying Angel tokens. And then we've got Secure the Wastes, United Front, and Blot Out the Sky as mana sinks that we can try to sink a whole bunch of mana into. And then, of course, they get copied equal to that amount as well, with United Front putting a bunch of +1 counters on our team. Blot Out the Sky can also maybe destroy all non-creature, non-land permanents, also part of why we don't want to have too many ramp artifacts in the deck. Then we move on to our interaction, where at 1 mana we've got some of the classics, Swords to Plowshares in white, Fatal Push in black. Thoughtseize as a discard effect can also be very powerful. And then a Get Lost, another versatile answer that can also hit enchantments and planeswalkers. Bitter Triumph can also hit planeswalkers. And then we've got a bunch of these flexible removal spells that can hit any non-land permanent. So these are great in case our opponent only has 1 creature or 1 enchantment, let's say, in play that we want to destroy. So we can potentially hit both a creature and an enchantment, so we don't waste our casualty. So there's a Stroke of Midnight, Anguished Unmaking will cost us some life, Allegiance to Ashes at sorcery speed, and then the Abstruse Appropriation, even have some colorless sources to maybe help fix our mana for it. So these are all very flexible. Then we also have Soul Shatter, making the opponent sacrifice their largest creature or planeswalker. So once again, let's say the opponent has both a creature and a planeswalker in play, and we cast it with casualty, then they'll still end up having to sacrifice both, compared to a removal spell that only hits creatures, then casualty would not be very effective. Dismember we can cast for 1 mana if we're willing to pay some life. Snuff Out we can cast for free if we control a swamp, taking out a non-black creature at the cost of 4 life. And then a Pile On is also very synergistic here, as we can cast it with Convoke, and once again we can also sacrifice a creature that's being used for Convoke to casualty to get the best of both worlds. And then the March of Wretched Sorrow, a nice removal spell that can also gain us a bit of life back, can hit both creatures and planeswalkers. Moving on to our card draw, we've got a bunch of these instants that make us sacrifice a creature to draw, so these are great with a Sacrifice Fodder and all the token makers, including a Deadly Dispute at 2 mana. The Staff of the Storyteller can accumulate some counters, so we can draw more cards whenever a token enters, has to be a creature token. Night's Whisper will draw 2 at the cost of 2 life, whereas at 3 mana there's Dire Sight, which will also let us surveil 2 before drawing 2. Then we've got Caretaker's Talent, Tokasia's Welcome, and Enduring Innocence as enchantments that reward us for playing a bunch of creature tokens. Black Market Connections can also exchange our life total for treasure, extra cards, and shapeshifters, which we can then also maybe sacrifice to casualty. And then we've got our 2 Liliana Planeswalkers, with a Dreadhorde General also drawing cards whenever a token gets sacrificed, and Professor Onyx with Magecraft draining the opponent for 2 and gaining 2 life, can also draw more cards or make the opponent sacrifice their largest creature. Then we move on to our mana section, where Culling the Weak is a recent addition, also incredibly powerful, as we can easily sacrifice a creature to now make 4 mana, whereas Dark Ritual just makes 3. And then we've got our Talisman and Arcane Signet at 2 mana, and then Worn Powerstone as one of the best 3 mana ramp artifacts. And then last but not least, we've got a few token doublers with Anointed Procession in token form. Mondrak we can also make indestructible if we have something to sacrifice. And then Elspeth Stormslayer has a lot of uses, but of course also doubling our tokens. And then our tutor effects include Vampiric Tutor, which we can cast for 1 mana at instant speed, even in our upkeep if we need to make sure we draw the card right away. And then Dark Petition is awesome to copy with casualty, as it can make a bunch of mana in return, in addition to searching for 2 cards. And then our mana base also has some nice utility lands here, with the Air Temple pumping our team. We've got a few token makers with Castle Ardenvale, the Realm of Ko, as well as Westvale Abbey. And then there's also Fountainport here. And then of course Westvale Abbey can also be transformed into Ormondal if we have 5 or more creatures to sacrifice. And then we've got plenty of mana fixing. Phyrexian Tower can also make an extra mana if we have a creature to sacrifice. The channel lands offer additional interaction and utility. And then we've got the encampment, which can also maybe be activated to make extra tokens for us to sacrifice, although that's not going to come up all that often. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Witherbloom. Played this matchup in reverse, and Witherbloom seemed quite favored. That being said, we have a reasonable start with Talisman, Procession, Dire Sight for a bit of card draw. So mostly looking for more removal and token makers to pair with a Procession. Start by surveilling. Our opponent's going to make a bunch of tokens themselves, and then Witherbloom can power up some of their bigger non-creature spells. So if we can keep Witherbloom in check, the deck is a lot less scary. But it will also have answers to my commander. Thoughtseize is promising, can play it alongside Talisman. Maybe take away a removal spell that could otherwise answer Silverquill. Although I still need kind of an initial token to leverage the casualty. Can technically use the encampment, but that's pretty mana intensive. Opponent says no to the birds. And their hands got intervention to protect their creatures, Beast Within, and then expertise and season as the payoffs. So they don't have much in the way of early ramp. If I take the Gilded Goose, they're very far from ever playing their commander. So I think we just try and leave them stranded. They top decked the Sanctum Weaver, that's pretty good. If I play any of my 4-drops, they're likely to get Beast Within. Maybe that's okay. If I go for Silverquill next turn, I could copy the Dire Sight, which is pretty tempting. I guess having the Procession in play could give me 2 Beast tokens, so there was some upside there. And they will Beast Within. Is this a Delve card? They're looking at the graveyard. Reanimate the Birds of Paradise. Fair enough. So now they're getting closer to casting Witherbloom. And I do not have an answer yet. Could go digging with the Dire Sight, because the Procession doesn't do much right now. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Secure the wastes, more tokens. I need removal. Alright, I can get the Bitter Blossom going. And attack for 3. So, not drawing the cards I need here. Maybe a Westville Abbey will make an appearance soon. Wall of Blossoms means Witherbloom is likely happening next turn. For now they've got the intervention available. And the wall conveniently blocks the beast. Okay, so I guess we run back Silverquill and then, yeah, see what happens. With 4 creatures, it's possible they'll be able to play Witherbloom and then still cast one of their 6-drops. And yeah, that's going to be happening here. So they get to draw 5. And now if I don't immediately find an answer, we're going to get buried. They could also pass with intervention available, which would also be reasonable on their part. Although there are some edict effects that can get around the hexproof and indestructible. Soul Shatter comes to mind. Vampiric Tutor. That can find exactly what I need. But not until next turn. I mean, I guess technically a creature I could channel into the graveyard, but yeah, that's not happening. So, if I play the Procession, I don't really want to tap out for Lingering Souls, although I could still tutor in my upkeep. So maybe it's fine to go Procession into Lingering Souls. Our opponent's going to get to combo off with Rishkars and Season, but hopefully we can go wide enough to keep up. So cast it with Casualty. At this point, the beast doesn't seem very useful. And then make sure to set an upkeep stop so I can Vampiric Tutor without casualty, but I can casualty whatever I get. And I haven't decided yet. So draw 5, cast another spell for free. And I might just get Craterhoofed here. Knight's Whisper. I guess the wall at least doesn't attack. And the audience is next. Okay. So they still have 4 mana available, 5 creatures for affinity. Could also tutor for my Author Tutor effect, which should have Spell Mastery enabled. Season of Gathering, destroying my enchantments. And our opponent gets to draw a bunch more. So they still have that Heroic Intervention we know about. So Edict effects are still potentially a way around it. So our opponent discarding 2 hand size. Cast a Tutor without casualty. But I think I will get my Author Tutor here. So I can search up 2 spells, make 6 mana. And then make sure I have whites available. Cast it with casualty. So then I'll have essentially 7 mana left. I want to get Soul Shatter. And then I guess Cornered by Black Mages could also get around their intervention. Our opponent doesn't know what we got. Now I guess if I get cornered, I do not have much in the way of card advantage left. So I could also just get some card draw effect instead. Because Soul Shatter already deals with Witherbloom. Or I could get rid of their entire board and then hope we can cross the finish line with what we have. Yeah, let's try that approach. So we'll start here with casualty. Possible they've drawn into a sweeper as well. Okay. And then Soul Shatter with casualty. And get your 2 remaining creatures. And the hope is that it's going to take them too long to rebuild. Opponent's got a Bowmasters in response. That saves the birds. So I guess they had the Bowmasters at the ready to punish a card draw spell, as it turns out. Okay, and then go to attackers. And I'll just play this one out. Do have a Westville Abbey we could also try and use next turn. Hoping there's no board wipe. Maybe a Casualties of War, destroy Silverquill land artifact. Looks like it. But that would still leave them dead on board. Alright. That works for me. And a Signet. Alright, sweet, and that'll do it. So yeah, very close game, lots of back and forth. Our opponent got to combo off for a bit. But yeah, that Vampiric into Dark Petition definitely turned the game around. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Rofellos, so we're gonna need some cheap removal. And this works. Swords and Get Lost, Bitter Blossom to make tokens. So then we still need some payoffs for Silverquill's Casualty. Opponent starting with a Grazer. I'll keep up Swords so we can exile Rofellos end of turn here. And then I can maybe afford to tap out for Bitter Blossom. Opponents got more. A Sylvan Tutor, so they can find whatever creature they want. I'll wait to Swords, since that might affect their decision. And we'll get to see what they put on top, since it has to be a creature. Primeval Titan. Alright, so hopefully we can stall our opponent for a while here. And then if I go for Bitter Blossom, next turn I can still get Lost Rofellos when they replay it. Pest is a good one to copy with Silverquill when we get the chance. Same with the Dark Petition. Right, they had an Overlord, so they were not able to replay Rofellos this turn. And a Snuff Out, another very cheap answer, a free one in fact. So we've got options. I think it's still pass with Get Lost up. And then next turn I can maybe tap out for Silverquill. Turn after we can copy Send in the Pest, or maybe start with the Dark Petition, which will then also have Spell Mastery enabled. We know they don't have lands in hand, so their hand is maybe more expensive spells. They probably drew a land for turn. And there's Rofellos. And then I'll start with a Get Lost. Should they have a instant speed hexproof trick, I can still respond with a Snuff Out, so they don't get the map tokens. Alright, so we'll go for Silverquill. And then I can also technically cast this with Casualty. And no point in attacking yet. Ooh, a Defense of the Heart. Yeah, that's one card that can punish token decks. And Bitter Blossom is going to keep on making tokens. So that's scary. I do have a Season of the Burrow to maybe answer defense. If I draw land, if I don't, I might have to get creative. Alright, luckily found a land. So then the most straightforward play is just Season answering defense. Or Dark Petition could try and find something, but with only black mana, I don't think I have anything that can get rid of an enchantment. And then there's a couple fetch lands, one fetch land I could return. I think I prefer making tokens then. Cast it with Casualty. Exile Defense, sack the Fairy token, and exile your Overlord as well. And Silverquill gets in for 4. So our opponent will most likely play Primeval Titan, and then I get to Casualty, maybe a Send in the Pest after casting Dark Petition with Casualty. So we get to do a lot of things next turn. Can wait on Snuff Out until there's a second creature in play. A Mondrak can double our tokens as well. But yeah, it's gotta be Dark Petition. I can find a discard spell that I can then follow up with Send in the Pest to essentially empty their entire hand. And then with the remaining mana, I could still do some more damage. So I'll get a Thoughtseize. And then I could go for, let's see, Yeah, I'll have 3 mana left, basically. Could just get a card draw spell like Dire Sight. So then first I will Thoughtseize my opponents with casualty. This is going to cost me a bit of life, so I have to be a little bit mindful of that. Alright, they have a bunch of spells. They did actually have a way to make their creature indestructible. And then we'll Dire Sight with casualty, drawing 4. Send in the Pest with casualty, making them discard their remaining 2 cards. And then I could maybe wait for the opponent to cast another creature before the attack with Primeval Titan, so we get to snuff out. But yeah, opponent's also pretty close to dead once we start activating the Air Temple. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Hei Bai, 5-color shrines. So removal, like the appropriation, is pretty good, since it can also hit enchantments. That being said, this hand is maybe a bit light on mana. Don't have any card draw until we get to the Professor. So I would rather look for something a little bit different. Okay, this one's got potential with Sage into Culling the Weak. So can already play an early Silverquill potentially. We'll have to wait and see how the opponents configured their deck, because there's a lot of ways to build around Hei Bai, besides of course including a bunch of shrines. Some versions have more ramp, others are more controlling. Others maybe focus on flickering creatures a bunch. Yeah, it's tempting to play Silverquill here since we don't have much else going on. And then I could still Village Rites, of course it would be without casualty since I need to sacrifice a creature to begin with. But may as well dig for some token makers. Alright, so next turn maybe a No Way Out, or I can first set up Doom Traveler so we can double No Way Out. Opponent with an Exploration. It's gonna help them empty their lands from hand, so they're more likely to have spells for me to make them discard. But yeah, stock up a way to refuel. So I think I wait on No Way Out until I can set it up with casualty. And for now I can surveil, still have Dismember and Snuff Out available if our opponent decides to run out Hei Bai. Alright, they've got 4 cards remaining, and taps out for Hei Bai, so this is perfect for No Way Out with casualty. Hei Bai hits. Can have a quick look here. They've got Pact of Negations, Counter Spells, Time Warps. For now, Fruitful Harvest. So, could Dismember Hei Bai end of turn. Still gonna prioritize Surveilling. Yeah, could also just take my draw step first. And then let's just No Way Out with casualty. Sacking the Traveler. And I'm fine if they keep Hei Bai in play, as opposed to them replaying it since they have the mana for it. So discard all 4 cards, please. Alright, they had a Memory Deluge, so they can still get value out of the graveyard. And then, yeah, we'll pass a turn here, I think. Would love another card draw spell to pair with all my newfound tokens. Opponent's gonna get to Memory Deluge, but at least they'll be tapped out for now. So it could be an okay window to just deal with Hei Bai. Hei Bai attacks. I'll just dismember it here. Alright, summoning isn't bad. So then, cast it with casualty. Sacking a zombie. And then I'm fine to attack with a zombie token, I think. Hope they didn't draw a sweeper. And then we should have 7 damage next turn. Hei Bai is back. 2 mana remaining. And the Lost Wisdom. So I could now snuff out with casualty. Let them mill if they want to. Milling me. And looks like we'll get there. Alright, GG's, awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Sami, so a red-white kind of affinity deck. Our hand is reasonable, we've got some token makers for calling and village rights. And then we'll start with a surveil land. Opponent with a canyon. And a Liliana, still pretty far from getting cast, but we can also ramp into it with Culling the Weak, so don't hate it. And this turn, there's not much happening. Next turn, Connections. And then I can maybe sack the Shapeshifter to set up Liliana. Okay, and get a Plains. Probably gonna start seeing some mana artifacts soon. Our goal is to prevent our opponent from going off with Sami, so instant speed removal could be especially useful. But yeah, next turn they could already maybe cast it and then cast more spells for free afterwards. So I'll choose all 3 modes. And then, yeah, I think it's Liliana for now. If I go for Silverquill, let's see, I could play Silverquill and then Culling the Weak with, I guess Casualty doesn't work since this also requires a sacrifice. So yeah, let's just keep it simple. And then play Liliana. I could then still sacrifice a zombie to village rights if I'd like. Keep that option available. And then Liliana can at the very least use a -4 to get rid of Sami. Although they do also have an arena to give it haste. So then chumping with a zombie first is going to be important. Opponent's got a different plan with Paradox Engine. Yeah, that card's usually pretty busted. And especially in a deck with a bunch of mana artifacts. So I don't think we have time to wait around. I'm gonna try and find an answer to the Paradox Engine if possible.
Death is such an effective
We do have a few answers that could hit any permanents. And I think I just choose all 3 once again. Alright, found a Season of the Burrow, so that can answer the engine. I'll make a zombie. So then I can cast Season, exiling 2 things, making a token. Exile Engine and Signet. And then pass a turn. Keeping my treasures. Now we'll have to slow things down with the connections, since we only have 11 life to work with. Also can't forget about Westvale Abbey. If I sack 5 creatures, we can make Ormondal. So that could be happening soon. Maybe next turn play Doom Traveler, make a zombie, transform this. Okay, Pentat Prism, a good way to ramp out Sami. Ormondal does not have Vigilance, but if I sack the Traveler I would have a 1/1 flyer to maybe chump a hasty Sami if they try and attack Liliana. A Relic of Legends resolves. Now going for Ormondal does get punished if they have like a Swords to Plowshares here. But it might be worth it. Liliana pluses.
I do quite enjoy necromancy.
Yeah, let's try it. Doesn't seem like they're holding priority. I would get to draw a bunch with Liliana.
You've reached this is more
And now Bitter Triumph also an answer to Sami.
ill of the undead.
It's been a while since I've seen Ormondal. It's kind of since the Magic Duels days. Okay, and then pass it back. Discarding 4 cards, mostly lanes. And I don't think I'll need Fatal Push. So yeah, this is a turn where they're gonna go off perhaps. So first chance I get, I want a Bitter Triumph. Alright, so hopefully they don't have a protection spell. Can just discard a card here, don't think I'll need Bitter Blossom. And our opponent scoops it up, they did not have a way to protect Sami, so they can't empty their entire hand. And then next turn we get to Ultimate Liliana, leave them with a land and an artifact, and I guess we're also just attacking for lethal. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Doran, high toughness. Our hand is missing some token generation. Snuff Out also not at its best since it cannot answer their commander. So we're mostly leaning on Dark Ritual, but then again our opponent could also have answers to Silverquill. Okay, this seems a bit more balanced. So turn 1, I can Thoughtseize in case our opponent wants to return a favor, and then turn 2 Talisman into Doom Traveler. See Binding, a bunch of high toughness creatures. Yeah, Binding's the most threatening here, I would say. As long as we draw removal, we can handle the creatures. Especially instant speed removal for Doran and for Felothar would be useful. We do have a pile on, so we can maybe keep that available. Alright, so we'll give Silverquill a try. Hopefully they have not drawn a removal spell in the meantime. And then next turn we can kind of go off. A golden sidekick is first. Alright, so I can send in the Pest, sacking Doom Traveler to the casualty mechanic. Make our opponent discard twice. Forest is gone. and Fellothar. Alright, so still fine to a Knight's Whisper here, I think. Sacking a Pest. Does mean I'm kind of tapped out on Pylon for now. But now with the land I'm fine. So yeah, let's just pass. This has Vigilance, so can get in for 4. And then I can Pylon with Convoke and Casualty. Can still tap a token that I'm planning to sacrifice. So I'm kind of hoping they play Doran. If not, I can deal with the Ram and the Sidekick. Cavern on Druid. There's Doran. And this says whenever you attack, so I need to do this now. And we get to surveil a bunch, hop to it to make more tokens, seems great. I mean, can't really go wrong here. We've got an Elspeth coming up. So we can attack, deal 5. And then maybe start with just playing Elspeth, since we know Doran isn't happening anytime soon. And then we'll get double the rabbit tokens next turn. So maybe could have drawn the Swords to Plowshares first. So we'll make some more tokens. Hop to it, sacking one of the tokens we just generated. And yeah, opponent has seen enough. We're about to make 12 tokens here with a single hop to it, thanks to Elspeth and Casualty. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Michelangelo the Heart, combined with Leonardo the Balance. Our hand is decent, a bit unusual, since we don't actually have many ramp cards, but both Signet and Power Stone to ramp out Professor Onyx could be effective. And the Shambler, of course, with Calling the Weak can also speed up that process. So turn 1 can play Shambler, turn 2 I could maybe play the Signet, or we can already Calling the Weak to set up Signet plus Power Stone, which then sets up Onyx on the following turn. Don't have a Swamp for Snuff Out just yet. Yeah, interesting spots. I guess we'll attack. So the next turn I can play Professor Onyx. Ideally, if we draw a Swamp, I get to play the Snuff Out alongside it. Or we can play Silverquill and then sack the Squirrel to copy this as well. The other Michelangelo also plays well with +1 counters. Our deck does not have any actual board wipes, so we will just have to copy spot removal to clean these up. So this is a map and 2 food tokens. Blot out the sky. Not the best now that we have Power Stone and Signet. Professor Onyx is a way for us to get rid of Michelangelo the Heart. But then there's a good chance I lose my Planeswalker next turn. So, yeah, bit of an awkward spot. Not having a Swamp for Snuff Out is making a huge difference. Yeah, the problem is if Professor Onyx dies, I do not have any card advantage left. So maybe I do just go for Silverquill. And then Next turn, maybe copy the snuff out. It's gonna be a battler. Can slowly grow as well. And the role model. More +1 counter synergy. This is a bit of a strange attack. I guess they can move the counter with a role model and get extra benefit from Michelangelo. That's fine by me. Okay, so and now what? Maybe I should just Professor Onyx and then plus in the hopes of finding a swamp. Or I can hardcast the snuff out, helping me deal with Michelangelo and the role model. Of course, weirdness to 11 still pretty good too here. And they do get to move counters with a role model. So there's lots to consider. Definitely get in with Silverquill. I think I risk it. Found a swamp, can make it a surveillance, or I can get Godless Shrine, so I can also play the Indebted Spirit. This has a ward too, which I'm not going to be paying. Yeah, I am at 10, so I have to be careful here, since I'm going to lose some more life. Yeah, Godless Shrine seems a little too reckless. I can maybe wait on Snuff Out, since we can do it at instant speed. Might catch the opponent off guard. And of course Professor Onyx will gain us a bit of life back as well, which helps. But now the Squirrel can also maybe block before we have to pull the trigger. Ozolith coming up. So I want to make sure I first remove the role model and then another creature. So the casualty copy will go after the role model, whereas we can go after maybe Michelangelo. And our opponent's just going face now. Alright, so yeah, these both trample. So this doesn't really matter. Block, and then Snuff Out with casualty. Now they can move the counters onto Michelangelo and then trade for Silverquill, but they went onto the Battler instead. So we actually fall to 1 here. Okay. So do not want to plus Professor Onyx, otherwise I'm dead. I can, however, -3. Get rid of the Battler. And gain 4 with Silverquill. And our opponent's also close to dead. In fact, they're dead to a Blot Out the Sky with Professor Onyx triggering twice, since it also counts copies with Magecraft. So then make a white, make a black. X equals 4. And there we have it, so incredibly close game here against what ended up being a green-white +1 counter deck. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Valgavoth, so mono-black, maybe a Reanimator deck. Either way, we have what looks like a functional hand with lots of card draw. Opponent might be ramping into Valgavoth, so then we can maybe slow them down with the Thoughtseize. And they have a Signet, a Sweeper, Virtue. I'll take the Signet. Damnation's going to be good at some points, but at least we've got a bunch of card draw to try and play around it. So I'll wait on the Traveler until after we maybe play the Innocents. I'm not in a hurry to get in for one. Keep the Vista. And then what makes more sense, Talent or Innocence first? Probably the Innocence. Our opponent will probably remove it with Virtue, that's fine. Yep, that happens. The Hive is nice to pair with both Innocence and Talent. Start with Doom Traveler, see what we draw. And then I'll fetch a Plains, play the Talent. Swords can answer one of their creatures. Opponent actually had to feed this worm to destroy an enchantment. So yeah, that lined up very nicely. Usually you don't expect enchantment removal out of mono black. So then now... Still don't really want to play Silverquill, knowing about Damnation and Shieldred. I'll just play the Hive. And hit for one. Massacre Worm also a way to punish a bunch of tokens. But I could try and remove it in response to the trigger before my creatures die. Don't mind seeing a Thirst here, since that'll now trigger the Innocence. So get in for one. Could consider activating the Air Temple as well, to maybe force their hand on Damnation. Yeah, I don't hate it. Should have probably played land first to keep up Source to Plowshares then. Can always fetch a Godless Shrine if needed. But now with Urborg I don't have to sacrifice the fetch land. Opponent is gonna Damnation, so yeah, feels like a victory here. But then again, if they waited, we could have made our creatures big enough to survive Massacre Worm. Okay, so Knight's Whisper can draw more. Could also sack the Might token to Silverquill to copy the Knight's Whisper. I think that makes sense. Then we know Shieldred can answer Silverquill. But, I guess I could also sack the Spirit then. Alright, that seems fine. So we're getting ahead on cards. And our opponent's still pretty far from casting their commander at 9 mana. So yeah, Shieldred doesn't force me to sacrifice Silverquill. I can get rid of the Spirit, which in turn makes another token triggering the Innocence. Now my life total is dwindling. Don't have any life gain here at the moment. But yeah, opponent's not gonna play this one out. There's too many cards coming our way. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Quintorius. So a Spirit deck. We have Shambler, Snuff Out, Missing Swamp. Dark Petition is going to be difficult to enable Spell Mastery, since they probably have some Graveyard Hate as well. So this one's not great. Would prefer finding answers that can hit Planeswalkers as well. Alright, I guess I'll settle for this. And then we've got Village Rites waiting for a token. But a turn 3 Connections is what I'm mostly counting on. Silverquill's gonna have a tough time surviving. Can expect our opponent to have quite a few sweepers. Turn 3 Quintorius. At least they did not have a way to enable it right away. To make a 3-2. And they got rid of a Cathar Commando, luckily for us. So I don't think I'm making shapeshifters, even though that would enable casualty perhaps. It's just costing me too much life. But treasure and card draw is good enough. And then now I could try the Anointed Procession, which will also double my treasures. So then Freebooter getting sacrificed can make 2 treasures next turn. Opponent does have the relic now to enable Quintorius to make spirits. And a portable hole gets rid of my treasure token, so can keep up swords. Quintorius activates. Our opponent can wait to use a relic end of turn. And a curse, probably naming Silverquill. So that's fine, wasn't really counting on it this game. Alright, so we'll go Freebooter into Village Rites. Still hoping to find an answer to Quintorius. Otherwise we can set up a big Secure the Wastes. Alright, Get Lost and Thoughtseize, both nice hits. Okay, so we see 2 sweepers. Crucible to replay lands also triggers Quintorius. Flame Slash would be an answer to Silverquill. So, nothing too devastating. Probably just take the Paragon, which can replay any number of their permanents out of the graveyard. And then I basically need to set up a one-hit KO with my tokens. And then I can wait for my opponent to activate Relic and respond with Get Lost so they don't get the Spirit token. So I won't be using Secure the Wastes anytime soon, knowing that they're packing 2 sweepers. But if I can cast one for like X equals 13 in their end step, then I can maybe attack for lethal on the following turn. Right, there's Crucible. Looks like they've already played a land for a turn. And I'll keep making treasures and drawing a card. Getting 2 tokens at the cost of 3 life is a little bit more tempting, but we also know about Flame Slash. So I would still rather use the first 2 modes a little bit longer. Yeah, if I go for Silverquill, it's just going to get answered at sorcery speed, so then I cannot double up on my Secure the Waste successfully. And we're almost at a point where I can cast a lethal Secure the Waste end of turn, thanks to the Anointed Procession. So this turn we can just activate Castle, make 2 tokens, maybe answer Magda, and then next turn I'll be able to set up a lethal Secure the Waste in their end step. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing another Rofellos deck. We do not have any black mana. It just takes 1 swamp, and this hand is pretty good. Between Bitter Triumph and Snuff Out. If I don't draw the swamp, I'm gonna be in trouble real soon. Although then again, it's not like this hand has any card draw, so maybe we can do better. Now we don't have the removal. Okay, this has a little bit of both. Do we keep the Season? Or do we keep maybe the talisman? I guess I'll keep the talisman to ramp out Silverquill. And then I get to surveil turn 1, turn 2 talisman, turn 3 we can answer Rofellos perhaps. Land is okay, but not a priority. Thoughtseize is nice. So we can double spell talisman and then have a look. Okay, opponent's packing a War Master with their elf synergies. And then some expensive spells. Ouroboros can maybe still come down a little sooner. Silverback only triggers when they cast a creature spell, which is not happening if we can keep Rofellos contained. Maybe I just take the War Master and hope they never get to 5 or 6 mana. Sure. So then we know our opponent's playing Rofellos. And I need to get rid of it. Could use March, since Cornered is a better answer to Ouroboros. Although getting this going can start draining my opponent, gives me something for conviction. Yeah, let's use this. At least with March we can pinpoint Rofellos in case they found some other cheap creatures. And with only 1 token, it's not like I can set up any casualty synergies. So I may as well draw. Which will not trigger the wizard token, because sacrificing is part of the cost. So now I can play Silverquill, play tapped Godless Shrine. And we have 2 removal spells at the ready. Okay, so just need some more token production now. Can just march for 5 on Ouroboros. Without casualty, please. Overlord is next. So then next turn we can see a Silverback or a Defiler. Village Rites is pretty awkward. I guess I can sacrifice a Talisman to Deadly Dispute, which is probably worth it here. Without casualty still, since there's no creature I want to sacrifice. And there we go, Battle Screech. So we can Battle Screech without casualty, and then flashback with casualty, sacking 1 token, tapping 3 white creatures in the process. And now we start getting ahead. So now I can also Village Rites with casualty, basically sack 2 things to draw 4. So I think we've turned the corner now. And Elspeth is going to be an excellent finisher. Could also just Elspeth minus on the Silverback, but yeah, opponent doesn't want to play this one out. So we get to see this black-white casualty control deck in action. And yeah, Silverquill's a pretty fun commander if you can get it going. Although it does ask a lot of you. You need to have enough random tokens to sacrifice, and then hopefully have enough card draw and other interaction to go with it. It does not always provide immediate value like a lot of other powerful commanders. So for that reason, it's definitely not among the top tier. That being said, if it does get going, the payoff is certainly there. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.